I'm actually Australian, not British. So, I would love you all to start by thinking why you became a designer. For me, I became a designer because I wanted to solve problems, specifically remote controls and toothbrushes. They all seemed very pointless to me as a teenager, so I thought, what a great career path. And so as I'm studying design, I realized, though, that I was learning how to create crap to sell to idiots. And that really didn't fit with my life goal, which was to solve problems. So I ended up becoming a sociologist because I realized humans were a big part of the problem. And I started a journey of trying to morph together the question of how do we solve problems that have value and meaning, and of course, how we do it in a very complex, human-centric world. So for the last 20 years, my career has been very much about solving this problem. How do we design a future that works better for all of us? And I'm not there yet. Turns out that job's a little bit bigger than just one person. So it's really great to talk to a room full of other creative, brain-loving people, because this is how we get to a better future. I actually founded a school for adults called the Unschool of Disruptive Design, because I realized that when we become adults, we also become very rigid. And we also think we know everything. And it turns out we don't. And the world is a complex place, and we need to evolve with it. And so in order to address some of the biggest challenges of our time, we need to learn how to think differently. And so my career is really about trying to design tools that help other people make change in the world, whether that be Fortune 500 companies, whether that be kids in high school, or whether that be, good people like yourselves. I've been very fortunate. I was named Champion of the Earth from the United Nations. It's an actual thing. Wow. Truly, when they rang me, I was like, hang on a second. Huh, it's a thing. Sure, that sounds great. David Attenborough just won it, so just say it. I got it first. And it's really great because it means I get to talk to world leaders about why design is so important, how we can design a better future. But it also means that, we are also, the reason I get an award like that is because we face a lot of problems. We have to actually figure out how to solve some of the biggest challenges of our time as a species living on this beautiful planet. And we know that we need to figure out how to live within the means and the resources of this planet. And so we've created tools like this, the Anatomy of Action, which you all have one. It's your hand. It's very convenient. The thing that you spend your money with, the thing that you throw your trash out with. You do other things with that, but I don't want to talk about it. So this is all about figuring out how we can create a new type of normal for everyday practices. This is for the UN. It's a free toolkit that they use regularly around the world to help people adapt to a more sustainable lifestyle based on scientific data of what would be the most beneficial if everybody in the world took these actions in how they eat, how they move, the fun things they do, and of course, how they spend their money. Quick tip, divest. That's a very quick way. Call your bank. We figured out that one's a really good one. Anyway, so the thing is that design is a tool that helps change the world. And we as designers are at the forefront of constructing the experience of others, which has a lot of weight to it. But as individuals living in this planet, we are also citizen designers of the future. The choices we make every single day, how we spend our money, how we move through our cities, the things that we click on even, these have a cumulative effect that ultimately impacts the entire economy and therefore the planet, because the economy is built on nature. Every single thing we do requires us to go to the natural world to take stuff, to then convert it into economic value, to then fulfill our lives and all of our deep-seated desires for stuff and fun things. And then ultimately, what do we do with it? You guys, it's really helpful if you answer my questions. We throw it away. Thank you very much for the back row. Yeah, we make trash. And the problem is that nature is not designed to accept a significant amount of technically altered products. And so we have this huge problem. Geologists are now battling it out, saying that we have entered into a new geological era marked by the rock and ice sediments all over the world called the Anthropocene, anthro meaning human. They're still having a fight about it. But essentially they're saying that since the 1950s, since the birth of the Industrial Revolution in the late 1700s, but specifically in 1950, after the Second World War, our economy exploded. And so did our demand for natural resources, our exploiting of them, and ultimately our production of waste and chemicals. And so every single centimeter of this planet has the markings of humans' touch. And here we are at this point in time where we've started to realize the impact of our collective actions. There is only one known life-sustaining planet in the entire fucking universe, and you all get to live on it. It's magic. Yet we spend our days not thinking about the natural world of which we are a part of which we are interdependent upon for every single second of our day, where we have a dynamic, interconnected, slightly weird relationship with, because, you know, if there wasn't photoplankton photosynthesizing for us, we wouldn't have oxygen, and then things would get a bit messy quite quickly. So we have this beautiful planet, we keep abusing it, and here we are at this point in time where we know we have so many different challenges in front of us that we need to address, whether it be climate change or ocean plastic waste. And there is so much data and science that is helping us understand how we can work within the boundaries of this planet versus against it. Because for the last 50 to 70 years, we have been completely exploiting the natural world for our own benefit. And now we realize the outcome of those actions. It's not only a changing climate, but it is also a very, very threatened biosphere. We are in what's called the 6th great extinction. I'm only going to depress you for like 5 minutes, I promise. They're like, oh God, what's she going to do? How many more minutes of her telling us we're fucked? It's going to end very soon. It'll get better, I promise. So basically, we are in the middle of the 6th great extinction, and it is directly related to ecosystem destruction because we like to eat food. Who knows why the Amazon is currently a net contributor of carbon for the first time in the history of the planet? Who knows why? Cattle, yes, actually mainly for the land clearing to grow soy to feed cattle, but also now for quite an illegal cattle production because of humans' desire to eat dead things. So our demands, every single individual action that we take on this world has impacts on the planet. And so what we're trying to figure out how to do is we're trying to move from this current status quo of extraction and exploitation through to a circular, restorative, and hopefully regenerative outcome. And to get to a regenerative place is where humanity gives back more than we take. It would be amazing if we figured out how to meet our needs within the means of the planet. And the thing is that it might feel like these problems are quite big and they're not necessarily connected to you, but this connects to all of us, like ocean plastic waste, for example. Is obviously a big problem right now. But one of the fascinating things is that who here does not eat salt? Who does not put salt on their food? If you put your hand up, I feel like you're lying. So scientists have found that every single type of table salt has microplastics in it, right? Because salt comes from the ocean. So, you know, we are ingesting every day particulates of the industrial economy and only just learning how much that's going to affect us in the long run. And the reason I want to bring this back to design is because every single product, every single service, every single element of our society has been designed. Humanity literally created a tool to terraform the planet to meet our own needs, and it's called design. And it's an amazing thing. It means that we can live prosperous and healthy lives. It means we can grow and evolve and adapt. It also means we create a lot of problems. And so design, in my mind, is both the cause and the solution to a lot of the problems that we face. But I truly believe one of the biggest issues in addressing these really important topics is that we don't know how to address problems properly. Most people avoid problems because they get scared of them, or they think they know the solution to them without truly understanding it. And so one of my goals in my career is to help people learn to love their problems, like not like, oh, that problem's so cute, like a puppy, more like I want to go on a date with it. Find out, you know, its inner workings, see if I want to have like a long-term relationship with it or not. Because when you're curious about it, you suspend the need to solve it. And I think in this framework, we can start to see that every problem actually holds its own solution. And this is about this concept of agency. And this doesn't just apply to designers, it applies to everybody in the world. We all have the ability to exert a sphere of influence, to take what resources we have and to be able to affect those that are around us. And one of the key roles that I believe designers play is in influencing their customers and their colleagues and the world in which they design for. And these like cascading spheres of influence can help us create new types of normal. And those new types of normal help us get to that regenerative future. Because designers, as much as we don't like to admit it, which is not true because we're all arrogant as fuck, of course not you guys. We are literally challenging culture every day. Like the world is changed by design, and then design ultimately changes as a result of how people interact with the things. It's a dynamic relationship. But we have an issue, which is that the human experience is a hot mess. I hate to break it to you. The human mind is really about efficiency. It really doesn't want to have to solve a lot of problems. It wants to just get to its, happy state of dopamine and serotonin. But a lot of the time, we have to make decisions in a context where we are relying on our preconceived ideas and our cognitive biases. Now, we all have biases. These are glitches in thinking. There's hundreds of them. And some of my favorite include confirmation bias, where you seek out information that reaffirms what you already believe. Next time you're Googling, see which things you click on and which things you avoid. Because we can't help but seek out things that make us feel good. And that bias means that we actually don't learn a lot about a problem or an opportunity. There are so many different types of biases that affect our daily decision making as individuals, but as designers, it's even more problematic because we bring those biases to our design practices. We are literally locked in to our own experience of the world. And whilst, of course, we try to empathize with others, realistically, we are a us machine. We understand how the world is for us. And so when we look at solving problems, we often bring to the problem-solving experience a shit ton of our own biases, which is problematic because then, depending on where you are and who you are and what experiences you've had in the world, you will probably be in your own type of status quo. And therefore, we accidentally reinforce the system. So how do we disrupt this? How do we change the way we design so that we can design better things? Well, first of all, humans are very socially motivated. Don't know if you've noticed that. We respond to other people around us. We look around us for proof of how we should do things. And so the more people who do something, the more contagious that becomes. So the more people who use disposable coffee cups, the more normalized that is. The more people who bring their own cup to the office or in their workplace or whatever, the more normalized that is. The more people who sit in design meetings and bring the planet to the table and talk about how their decisions are impacting, the more normalized that conversation becomes. So we have the opportunity to seed change through the choices we make. Because we cannot avoid the fact that we are in an interdependent relationship with the world. And that things like climate change are not just about us choosing to switch lights off, but it's embedded in every single thing that we do. In fact, it's quite funny if you think about it, because humans, we really created a bit of a messy system, which is this linear system that we live in today, where we go to nature, we extract resources, we create usable goods, and then we waste them. This linear economy is what is driving unsustainability. And the solution proposed to that is this idea of the circular economy, where we design waste out of the system. And this applies to all forms of technical innovation, whether it be physical products or our friend, the internet. I found this fascinating. Like, I've worked in sustainability for a long time. I never really thought about the fact that the internet was a physical thing. I know that sounds really dumb, right? I was like, it just kind of appears like magic. Then someone was like, have you thought about how much carbon is emitted as a result of a Google search? And I was like, no, I really should look into that. So yeah, it's like every single thing we do has an impact on the planet. And so this is fascinating because the internet kind of space is growing, obviously, because everyone works from home now, et cetera, et cetera. And it's around 3.7% of the global carbon emissions. I think it's about the equivalent of Germany. And the changes that have happened in the last decade, this is the impact, the amount of energy required for an average web page. over the last 10 years. So there's been a bigger increase in the amount of energy required to load a web page in general, and we also have a massive increase in the amount of people getting online and using the internet. But it's not just the internet, it's all the infrastructure around it that cause the problems. 70 million is the number of servers right now. And servers not only have to be made, mining materials, transforming them into whatever the servers are made out of, and then of course powered, which of course they have to be powered and they have to be cooled. So you have all of this energy that is required in order to keep our, dog pictures on the cloud. It's where the only thing I keep on the cloud is my pictures of my dog. 50 million is the number of tons of electronic waste that is trafficked around the world every year. So all of our old gadgets and our Internet of Things obsession now, all of those tech-enabled products don't have an end-of-life option. Whilst, of course, in the European Union, there are measures to recapture and recycle electronic goods. Most of them are not actually fully recycled, just valuable materials are taken out, and only 20% of the world's electronic waste is actually formally recycled currently. Most of it is trafficked illegally to emerging economies where it is processed in pretty substandard ways. And I know you all have a drawer of old tech right now that you don't know what to do with. And that's only going to get more full because this is where we're going. We're going down this path of more and more technology, more and more internet connectivity. So therefore, we have to solve this problem before it gets worse. There are lots of opportunities that are coming out right now. So I put together a few for you guys. Like, there's a sustainable web manifesto, which really beautifully gets to this regenerative websites, which I find kind of funny. I'd love to know exactly how that works. It's a website that loves you back. That was funny. Come on. Thank you. It's like, don't give me your Nordic audience like you don't really want to laugh on the outside. We're all friends here. There's this movement around green code where the engineers figure out how to code so that there is the lesser energy required. I don't know how this really works because I don't really understand code. But apparently it helps make the websites better for the planet. There's also there's also services where you can check to see right now what the impact of, say, a website or an app is, what the carbon implications are. And this is one I just found recently, which is really beautiful. I did it this morning. You can put in a website and you can get a full picture perspective. So this is for Google, and this is us in Sweden, and this is showing us how a Google search ricochets around the world in real time, and the impact of that search on that particular website, and the amount of CO2, and then how it's scored, and then it gives you actions on what you could do to help reduce that. And the cool thing about that is it's changing our perspective. Because when you Google something, you're in this little box all by yourself looking up. I don't want to know what you're looking up, but Google does know, just saying, even in dark mode. So you are looking in this private little world. You've got this myopic, but thank you very much for the love up there. That was a good one too. Honestly, I work harder with you guys. So you're in this little world, it's very myopic, right? It's like you think you're accessing the entire universe, but actually you're just accessing your cognitive biases fed to you by an algorithm that feeds you back the shit that you already searched. It's a whole problem unto itself. Not the point of this talk. What I want to talk about is how, by looking at that bigger picture and seeing how that one little action ricochets around the world, we get this full picture perspective. We move beyond this myopic, linear, one-dimensional understanding of the world, and we start to look at what is called in systems thinking the iceberg model. It's where we go from the tip of the iceberg, the surface, superficial understanding of how the world works and our impact on it, our role within it, and we get to dive deep below the murky surface to know and understand that an iceberg tip is all but a small part of a very, very big chunk of ice that is currently melting as a result of climate change. Thank you. This is good. I feel like we're really getting there. There's like a little, I'm going to make you have belly laughs. I've got 6 minutes left. And I have to really pull all my stops out. Okay. All right, so we shift the perspective. We learn to become like deep sea divers of the problem set that we're exploring. And what we uncover a lot of the time is deep below the structures that hold up those patterns is, of course, good old human mind. Because remember, the problems came from us because we created them to meet our own needs. Nature was doing just fine before we came along. We'll probably be fine once we leave. because Elon's going to fly us all to Mars, where there's all that great oxygen. So useful. I mean, yeah. So systems thinking is this incredible tool that helps us shift our perspective. It helps us learn how to think from this one dimension to this three-dimensional understanding of the world. And it gives us the tools to think dynamically about the problems that we're facing. And there's many tools that we can apply, but fundamentally we start with the whole and then we move to the parts. Because most of us are actually taught to just look at the little chunks of things, right? And then like Lego, we learn how to put them together. And that's nice, but that's not how the world works. The world is a dynamic, chaotic, interconnected, hot mess of things trying to survive. And if we choose to see ourselves as separate to that, which we do, we will never actually be able to work within that system. So the goal here is to figure out how to work within the system to create better outcomes. It's called emergence, and it's what nature does. It's what does not happen on Mars because there is no life. Just reminding everybody about that one. I might be wrong. Pretty sure I'm right. Anyway, so what our goal with using a systems mindset is when solving these problems and looking at how we can make change in our own lives and also in the work we do is we want to make sure that we are always solving a problem in a way that does not create tomorrow's next problem. Because all the problems we have today were somebody's fantastic idea yesterday. All right? And that's the cycle we want to disrupt. I have put this in here because I'm going to talk very quickly for the last few minutes, and if you want resources that explain this in detail, I have lots for free. You can QR code it. We have them all available online on the Unschools, because now we're going to go on a super speed train. Ready? Okay, all right. So one of the ways we've figured out how to help designers and creative minds solve these problems and use this type of framework in the design process is through something called the disruptive design method. And I'm going to quickly explain it to you. It's essentially a three-part process of mining, landscaping, and building. Yes, I used a construction metaphor. It's very easy to remember. And it is a scaffolding, meaning you already have your existing practice. You already know how to do cool things in the world. But do you know how to do it in a systemic and structured way so that you actually get to a better outcome that seeks to disrupt and make a better solution for the planet as a whole? Maybe. If not, this really helps you build that scaffolding on the outside, and then once you've figured it out, you can get rid of it like a nice building does. So mining is really where we learn to understand the problem. We learn to love it. We suspend the need to solve. We do that iceberg mining where we go deep under the water to figure out what systems dynamics are making that problem exist. And then from that, we take all those parts that we mined and we put them together in the landscaping phase, which is systems thinking, which is all about shifting perspective and coming up above the problem. Looking at it like we're in an airplane or you're a bird soaring above it, so that you're not stuck in that myopic, one-dimensional viewpoint that a lot of us just naturally end up in, right? And we're shifting perspective to see the problem and the dynamics, and then we're making choices about the point of intervention, and we're building solutions. And the building is where we get to do the fun stuff that we already know how to do, which is the designing. And this is an iterative process that we use in order to constantly explore the dynamics of the problem and work within the system. And why is it about disruption? Because with intent and integrity, you can change a system. Most of you are already changing systems every day. You just probably aren't quite aware of how you're doing it. And this is more about having that framework to be able to do it. Because to have intent to make change shifts the way in which you operate in the world. Just like, you know that physics thing with the double slot thingy and the cat? That's two I mixed up. One of them is a cat in a box, and the other one is you know what I mean, right? You're all smart here. This thing where when you look at the molecule as it's going towards the thing, it changes. Someone help me. Okay, totally wasn't planning on talking about this, but it's like perception changes the molecule's actions. And that is the same when it comes to if you like wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, the world's a terrible place. I feel terrible about it. I'm going to avoid it because I'm scared of the future. That's not going to help anyone. But if you wake up in the morning like, hey, I've got this cool job, or okay, maybe I don't have a cool job, I just have to go to it, and I have the agency and capacity to affect change in either subversive or overt ways, I have the intent to learn and to adapt to the world around me so that the solutions that I bring to the table are not just going to be the most cost-effective and the sexiest, but they're also going to be the most sustainable and regenerative. Like, that's a good day, right? That'll be a good day. No? Thank you. So what we want to do is we want to figure out how to use our skills to intervene in the system, to disrupt the status quo so that we get to better outcomes. Now, there's no guarantee that we're always going to get to a better outcome, but for sure, we can work bloody hard to get to an outcome that is better than the ones we have today. Or the trajectory that we're currently on, which is apparently not a very good one that somehow involves Mars and Elon Musk. So essentially, here we are at a point in time where we have the science and the knowledge, we have the skills, we have the time to take action when it comes to transforming the world. And might I add, we need to redesign everything, like the entire economic system, as well as all the products and services that fit within it, including our own minds, and that will require all of us to work towards doing that. So I challenge you to activate your agency in arrogant or subversive ways, however it works for you, I don't care. The more people who are involved in this, the more people taking action, making the conversation, the more likely we are to get to a better future, because the future is designed by our actions today. Thank you.